Well, from advances in agriculture, we turn to airborne technology. Drones are being heralded as a possible answer to Africa's poor infrastructure. There are trials underway in Rwanda, where most of the population lives in remote villages, and in Malawi, where the government's teamed up with UNICEF to explore cost-effective ways of reducing waiting times for HIV testing of infants. The hope is unmanned aircraft can simply hop over the rolling hills and mud tracks that barely connect people now. Business figures working across Africa believe drones can metaphorically leapfrog the lack of good roads to connect people, making a massive jump in healthcare and communication. There is a well-funded lobby backing drones to bring about a transformation in much the same way that mobile telephony wrought big changes over the past decade. Well, joining me to look at this in more detail are African Affairs analyst Debbie Ariyo OBE, who is also founder of Africa, Africans Unite Against Child Abuse, and Shahid Banglawala, who has filmed around the world with drones. He's also developed and operated the world's first 3D IMAX film-capable drone, which was used on Sir David Attenborough's BAFTA-nominated documentary Conquest of the Skies. Thank you very much indeed to both of you for coming in. I'll start with you. Are drones a feasible option for Africa, do you think?
I think for this specific mission case, they certainly have the potential to alleviate short-term issues, I think, in the sense that you may have a strong need to deliver packages urgently. And if you have a drone available, then yes, certainly the drones that we're seeing, or we're hearing about, the fixed-wing aircraft, similar to sort of like a commercial airliner, but obviously scaled down, those certainly can make an impact in delivering foodstuffs, in transporting blood for test samples. However, I think the limitations might be in if the vision is something which is like a highway in the skies. I think there we might start to run into challenges. Regulation aside, and you know, all the other things that come with that.
And of course, you've got to worry about the size of the drones and their capacity. I mean, that would make it either cost-effective or not to actually deploy these things, depending on what they can carry.
Absolutely, absolutely. Generally speaking, from an engineering and a physics standpoint, the larger the drone, generally speaking, the more rugged it is, the more sound it is, and the better it handles adverse weather conditions, because that's something that needs to be taken into account, local weather conditions as well, which can hamper a very small drone. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see where they go with that.
Okay, now Debbie, you're an OBE, you're recognized in the field of doing work across Africa and the UK. I mean, you run a very well-respected NGO that's done a lot of work in Africa. Give us an idea of what purpose these drones would serve. Could you see yourself using it to advance your work in Africa?
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's a internally displaced refugee camp in the northeastern part of Nigeria. These are people who've been displaced by Boko Haram. Now, there have been lots of problems in terms of getting facilities to these people. Actually, children are dying on a daily basis because there's no access to food. It would be a great idea to actually do a pilot project to see how the use of drones can help.
Well, they're actually doing a pilot project in Malawi, or not in Boko Haram, but Malawi. They're doing it with the UNICEF is doing
but there's a different angle to it, because this part of Nigeria, there's security issues there. So how well can a drone be used to service people in an area of high security risk?
So given what you're saying, can you see the drone delivery service becoming a priority for African governments in the face of innumerable other challenges that they face?
I think it is possible. I think it's a feasible proposition. I think it's something that should be looked at by different governments. I mean, of course, there are costs involved, but when you look at that in terms of how many lives you're able to save, then I think that's something that people need to consider.
Now, Shahid, is it something that is, you know, cost effective?
That's a very good question. I think it potentially could be cost effective in terms of if you break down that cost into, let's say, pence per mile or something like that. But I think there's more to it than just purely cost. there'll be a risk factor as well, or reliability factor, which needs to be included in the cost analysis. And by that I mean, what is the cost, both financially and in terms of the human aspect as well. If a drone was to, say, carrying HIV test samples, was to come down for whatever reason, or was unable to deliver a food package, I think that also needs to be factored in. And also, yeah, I mean...
But on the positive side, though, I mean, these drones are obviously quicker and more efficient, aren't they? At the moment, they're using a lot of motorbikes, for example, to get around the bad roads and things like that. And that could take days, but a drone could take, half an hour, 40 minutes.
Absolutely, yeah. In that sense, yeah, they are certainly very capable. But I think, and I don't think this will happen, but it's worth saying that there should never be total reliance given over to this technology. There should always be a backup available, a guy on a motorbike, so to speak. And also, going back to the cost element, this equipment is far from plug and play, as I mentioned earlier. So it would still require specialists, technicians, pilots. I mean, even BAE Systems, who've operated large, huge drones in countries across the world, Iraq, in Israel, for surveillance purposes and otherwise, even these multi-million-pound drones have required safety pilots standing at the end of the runway in case anything were to go wrong. So those kind of people, that kind of expertise also costs money, so that'll be factored in as well.
Beyond all this, Debbie, I mean, people are comparing drones to the mobile phone revolution and the revolutionary impact these mobile phones have had on everything from banking to medical emergencies. But it's not quite the same thing, is it?
No, I think it's something totally different. A mobile phone can change a single person's life, directly, at very little cost. I think that's the key point. But with a drone, I mean, you need multi-billion or multi-million dollars worth of investment to be able to get a drone project, or I don't know what you guys call it, a drone project off the ground, make it work, make it function, make sure there are no security.
Well, I mean, they're reasonably cheap drones, but he would know this, that essentially operate cameras, but those are not the same type, I guess.
And those very small ones are being used for recreational purposes by many very rich Nigerians, just going out there and playing with it. That's not what we want.
No, absolutely. Now, briefly, Shahid, are you confident, you're in the business, so you know what's going on, that in time and with enough financial commitment, drones could change the face of a continent like Africa?
That's a big question. With the money alone won't address the issue, but with the right minds and...
So there's got to be the political will to do it.
Political will is a big part of it, regulators as well, but with the right engineers, the right technicians, the right minds to approach the problem from a novel and interesting way, certainly the potential is definitely there.
Okay, Shahid Banglawala and Debbie Ario, thank you very much indeed to both of you.
Thank you.
And that's it for now. With the shocking levels of illegal small arms in the hands of criminals and militants, there's much work to be done by governments in West Africa to curb the threat of destabilization. Meanwhile, a project in Malawi is paving the way for food self-sufficiency in Southeast Africa with a return to producing native crops. And there's hope that new technology can bring dramatic changes in healthcare with the use of drones to reach remote communities. You've been watching Africa 360 with me, Charles Aniagolu. Thank you to my guests, Temitope Olodo, Lagun Akinloye, Debbie Ario, and Shahid Banglawala. For now, from me and the entire team here in London, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.
There is a reason Africa is called the new frontier. What was once potential is now an opportunity ready to be seized. Once revered for our resources, today's wealth lies in our people. People who build the cities that shape the future. People who know an idea in one place means business in another. A generation for whom technology means there are no borders, no boundaries. We are the new lions in a brave new world. kings of the urban jungle. And there's a bank that puts the world in our pocket and the future in our hands. UBA, Africa's global bank.